Hey my dudes, it's Caitlin, and today we have another study with me video, and this one is focused on the day before my exam, so low-key cramming. Here's everything that I use, all the supplies that I use for taking notes and studying. I use the iPad Air 3rd generation 10.5 inch and the 1st generation Apple Pencil, and it is 64 gigabytes of storage. So I'm going to show you the apps that I use. The first app that I use is Notability, and this is where I import everything from worksheets to textbooks, and then I also do my studying in here and take my lecture notes that are in class in here before I recopy them. Next, I use Goodnotes. For 2 classes, I put the final drafts of my rewritten notes in here. I make them really neat, like a mini textbook that I'll save for myself for grad school. So like I said, today we are working on stuff for an exam that is tomorrow. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm finishing up the practice quizzes. So we had quizzes and he gave us the quiz keys the other day. So I'm highlighting in green the correct answer and then annotating any extra information that I need. I'm adding all of this information mostly from memory unless I don't know why that answer is correct. So this is just backing up what I have in my brain and making me recall what I've learned, which is actually active learning, which is really useful for studying. So I finished that, and then there was more that were released today. So I wanted to finish all the practice quizzes and annotating them. So I imported that from my laptop. I got it from the school website, and then I imported that into the same exact note that I had been working on, so it would all be in one place. And I just did the same thing where I'm annotating and adding any extra information to practice active recall. If you guys don't know what active recall is, it's basically any time that you have to dig into your brain to find the information and recall it. This is the best study method that I've used. If you guys want more information on active recall, I'll talk about it later in the video, and I'll have a couple of my videos linked in the description where I explain to you the best way to use active recall for memorization. So I'm watching Stephanie Harlow true crime videos this entire time I'm studying, by the way. So I did make a study schedule for my exam 2 studying, but I didn't end up using it too much. I looked at it, but I didn't cross anything off just because I made it the wrong days of the week and it sort of threw me off. So I just took everything that I hadn't done from that study schedule and made a final to-do list because it is the day before the exam. So I just put everything that I didn't finish onto this to-do list, and this is to give myself a direction for what I want to do when I'm studying. It looks like a lot, but I tried to make the process as efficient and fast as possible because it is the night before. So I already basically finished annotating chapter 11, but I didn't do the summary, which is the most important part when I'm doing it the night before because I mostly just take notes on the summary. So for the chapter 11 book notes, what I'm doing is I'm taking skimmed notes from the entire chapter, but I'm mostly doing notes from the summary. I'll take notes on any key concepts from class that we went over that's written throughout the chapter, but I'll focus on the summary because when it's this close to the exam, I don't have time to take notes on the entire chapter. Ideally, I would take notes on everything that's important in the chapter, but because it's so close to the exam, I just need to focus on what's most important, which is the key terms that are gone over in lecture, and then the summary. So now I'm moving on to chapter 13, and what I did for this is I just focused on the summary first and really highlighted everything that was important in the summary, which was most of the summary. And then I went back through the chapter and highlighted any key terms that stuck out to me that we went over in lecture. There were a couple topics that I knew I was fuzzy on, so I just found those throughout the chapter and purposely highlighted those. So I'm taking notes on this again, and as you guys know, I use the outline method for all of my notes. So this is just having a key topic and then putting bullet points underneath that for any information that goes under that. I highlight titles in green and I highlight anything underneath the titles in orange. And this is just the system I have. The outline method doesn't work too well when I'm doing book notes because I'm doing such compact notes that there really isn't information under the topics. but you guys get the idea. As you can see, I didn't take too many notes. It's a really condensed version of what I usually do. So I'm going back to my checklist, checking things off so I can keep up. And then I'm moving on to reading and annotating chapter 14. So to import my textbook into Notability, I showed you guys this before, but I basically just airdropped the entire textbook PDF to my iPad. And once I have that airdrop to my iPad, I import it to Notability, and then I title it what chapter I'm going to be importing. And then I deselect all the pages, and from the thumbnails, I find the chapter that I'm importing, which is chapter 14, and I select all the pages from that chapter and just import that part of the PDF instead of the entire textbook. So now that I have that imported, I have to cross off the sections that aren't important, that I don't have to look over or read. And then I had some salmon and rice for dinner as a little study break. It was so good. For chapter 14, I did a really fast skim of the entire chapter, just because I knew that some of these topics were going to be really important. So I just skimmed for information that we went over in lecture that I didn't study as much, and highlighted the very key concepts from those sections. I usually just go straight to the summary and highlight the summary if it's this close to the exam, but I knew that there were some things that I was fuzzy on, so I just skimmed the entire chapter. And then I took notes on chapter 14. So these are all the very condensed versions of my 3 chapter notes. Usually this is as much notes as I take for 1 chapter, so you can tell it's very condensed. We're moving through the checklist pretty quickly. I did this all within a couple hours. Now I'm doing the active recall spreadsheet. If you guys want more information on how to use this to perform active recall, then you can watch my video that is linked in the description. It's another study with me where I talk about how to use the active recall spreadsheet. This is the most practical and simple way to use active recall. Basically what I'm doing is I'm quizzing myself on the questions that I put in the spreadsheet, and the color on the left, green, yellow, or red, corresponds to how sure I am with the answer. Red is wrong, completely wrong. Green is completely right. And yellow is sort of right or unsure, or took me a long time to answer that question. Now I'm moving on to learning objectives, which is a really important part of studying for this class. So I went through my book notes and my lecture notes and answered the questions to the fullest of my capabilities that he gives us. So every week he gives us learning objectives or an outline of topics that we went over in lecture. I put those all into Google Drive, and what I do is I answer all the questions, put all the information under each topic, and this is where I compile my lecture notes and my book notes. That is a really key part of studying. Usually my lecture notes and my book notes are very separate, so this is where I combine the two. And this document ended up being like 20 something pages long. It was really long. I didn't finish all of it like I ideally would, but I felt really comfortable with this unit, so I didn't feel like I had to completely finish it. So there's a couple things left on my to-do list that I'm going to do tomorrow before the exam, because the exam's at 12:40. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video on how I study the night before my exam. I love you guys with all of my heart, and I'll see you next week in another video. Peace out, guys.